Hello everybody, welcome to Plain Mundane Show. Alex here. What we're going to talk about, let's look at my screen. What do I have? Can you identify any one of these things? No, they're actually all the same. Let's see. If you look at the bottom left, that's the Tower of Babel. If you look at the top left, that's a Rodin Coil or Rodin Coil. In the center is anodes and cathodes placed in tissue serum that I used in neuromodulation to learn how to steer currents around the spinal cord and brain when I worked with neurosurgeons in neuromodulation. And I'm showing you the field. I'll talk about that. And on the right, when I first graduated from college and my first job, I sold chicken products, vaccines, sanitizers, animal health medicine. I even did small animals and things like that. Visited vet clinics, but a lot of chicken farms. And that's actually a toroid that I sold, from 1998 to 2005 or 2006. What that does is senses when your fan goes off and gives you an alarm. So, all right, what I want to talk about right now, I want to talk about magnetic fields, what I know about them and what is my intuition about how they work and what's occurred to me. You can call it an apostrophe, like in Pirates of the Caribbean, or an epiphany. I've told you in some prior videos that I worked in the chicken industry, started in vaccines, and then went to incubation systems. And there I worked with, was a partner of mine in a business after that, the electrical engineer that made all of the circuit boards, and channeled equipment. And we had URLs with machines running on them and 40 machine hatcheries accessed by the web. You could turn on off the light, you could change the temperature settings, set alarms, you could do all kinds of stuff. And that was in 98. I was doing like 20 channel circuit boards, high and low side design, and sales and marketing and operation running. I was director. So anyway, look at what these are. Okay, this is the electromagnetic field that we live in. If you've seen it going through the earth in the drawings, like the Van Allen belt, like on this Rodin coil on the top left, if you just picture that as the earth, but you might have to look up an animated GIF of an active toroid to see that thing, how it moves. And I couldn't do it in this broadcast because it jammed up my GPU and I couldn't run the recording. Okay, now in the center on that current steering, that center picture, this was a slide from a class that I had taught to me by a nurse and a couple of doctors about neuromodulation and how you attract and steer currents and how you use anodes and cathodes. Now in this picture, if you look at the squares on the left, you'll see the two anodes are top left and top right, and there's three cathodes, the negative going down the center. Now if you look in the serum tissue there, don't ask me where the tissue came from or how we got it. I swore not to tell. So, but if you look at that top one, see that's got the most collection, agglutination of tissue, biological tissue around it. And it's surrounded by two anodes. Now, you can steer electromagnetic fields. I used to do this where the surgeon would place those electrodes and then I would go and pack you over in recovery. And they would have pain and I would be trying to reach their ankle and they say, oh, I feel that in my shin, it's under my knee, go further down. And I would switch electrodes and put anodes by a different electrode and drive it further down. So I learned how to steer fields, so I kind of have an idea. It works the same on Earth. The North Pole is a vortex, that's what the Aurora Borealis is. And the Tower of Babel, in an evil way, is also trying to create what's called a dipole. I don't know if that one is a low frequency dipole or if they attain, well, they're using teravolts like they're doing in CERN, but they can actually create like a reverse tornado lightning effect and rip open the heavens, basically. You know, we're told by Scripture and in many cultures and many people believe that, you know, God took the angels and demons that were bad on the earth and locked them into Apollyon, the abyss. You know, it's in Turkey. I've been there. I stayed in Izmir, near there, in Akhisar, Manisa. I've been to the Iraqi border selling chicken stuff. So anyway, if you look up the active toroid, now picture that as Earth, this Rodin coil in the top left. If you draw, like, picture a bagel that you would cut for the toaster, and the center of it is, there's above and below, right? It's as above, so below. So it's like a giant bagel, or it's a toroid. Now the torus is the round donut shape. It doesn't have to be a torus. It can be a square. It can be a pentagon, a hexagon, a septagon, an octagon. It can have any number of points, just like I did with the electrodes in that center picture. You can steer the electromagnetic field. And if you look back at that Rodin coil and you see the animation of it going, you can understand why people see the moon setting in the morning, like I have when I was in Santiago, Chile, and I saw the moon setting counterclockwise, going from my right to left, while I was looking at about 238, 240 degrees southwest. And I was at the Tropic of Capricorn. I was at Santiago, 33 degrees. So how I was watching the moon go further south and counterclockwise, if you look at this Rodin coil, it explains it. Not saying the Earth is flat 100% or whatever, but that explains why the sky reverses around the edge. Now, what if it's not a donut? You know what it also means? Aurora Borealis, the ceiling layer above us is a positron layer. So, and it dives into the North Pole. It's like the center of the bagel. Cut for the toaster. It dives into the North Pole, and that's the Aurora Borealis. And then this dipole transverse field, it has over-unity, so it breaks the second law of thermodynamics. I think it is. I don't even care, but whatever their laws are, they made up. But you have over-unity, which is if you dominate the field with a higher frequency and create a dipole running transverse to the cathodal plane. You can look all this up. But see, the edge of our Earth, I think it's actually myself. I think it's a star pattern. I'm going to draw just a rough sketch of what I think the Earth looks like. Instead of a round disc, the apexes are inverted. The Earth is some kind of thing like that. You know, when it talks about the 4 pillars of the Earth, and down around these areas we see the moon setting backwards. But if you think of all this sitting inside of an active toroid in a torus, it's not a torus actually. It's a toroidal field, but it's not a torus. But so anyway, I thought I would share that with you, and I hope you enjoyed it. So there's the part that was the alarm. You know what it did on the incubator? If you had millions of, we had 155,000 chicken eggs with embryos in them in an incubator for 19 days, 19 and a half days. And if you lost power in that machine, that's a lot of money. Think about 155,000 chickens in the supermarket gone because the power went off. So the cable would go around through this copper wire on this high quality choke and inductor. You could choke the current, but you could also induce a current from what was floating through but in the hole. And when it goes through what's called the transverse dipole in the middle, it reads the current that it's inducting. It's like grabbing that current and feeling it and then energizing it, and it can amplify it or choke it. But it has to be at a higher frequency, and it has to be transverse to the field shape of the bagel or the donut if it's a torus, But once you get the transverse, it's like a bagel going this way and another bagel going that way. And the 2 poles are like a cross. They're transverse. So I know this is deep science, but it explains, if you're a flat earther, let me tell you, the ceiling is not a dome. The ceiling is not a dome. Even Van Allen will agree, the first layer we see the ceiling, whatever it is, water, or positron. It's a positive layer. It's positronic, and it dives into the center, into the North Pole, and we see Aurora Borealis. It gets amplified into an over-unity field, which radiates over the cathodal plane, and that also creates gravity because we're positively charged, and we sit on a cathodal plane, and the sky is positronic. Look up positronics instead of electronics. It's kind of one of those as above, so below things where, why are we using electronics on the dirty side of the alternator where we have resistance and copper and crap like that, where if we use positronics, you obtain over unity and there's no frictional, there's no ohm resistance with positronics. So anyway, so this is how the Earth works. It's over unity. Look at the second law of thermodynamics. If I'm wrong, who cares? Over unity. That's how the Earth runs, and that's basically what we're on. But it's not a dome. It can't be a dome, or the field can't line up. You have to have, even if you could steer it like I did with these electrodes, you still have to have a field. And you're still going to have a general shape between your cathodes and your anodes. You know, the field of the Earth would be the opposite of this tissue sample I have here. The anode would be in the middle and the cathodes would be steering around the edge, but the cathodes would have most of the energy because most of the energy always goes toward the cathode. And you know what, folks? Energy goes from negative to positive. All right, so that's my spiel. That's my theory from knowing electromagnetics, toroids, programming patients with neuromodulation, and what I know about the Tower of Babel. It's all about portals and opening portals and sucking yourself through into a higher frequency or dimension, or keeping yourself choked and locked out without induction. So, all right, until I post another video, I hope you enjoyed that. Keep an open mind. I'm not saying 100% anyway. I just explained a bunch of physics to you, but that's my hobby. Enjoy your day until I post another video.